Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie McGrath, senior editor at Forbes. AccuWeather is out with its 2025 Atlantic hurricane forecast. How bad will this hurricane season be? Joining us to discuss is Alex DaSilva. He is AccuWeather's lead hurricane forecaster. Alex, so good to have you back.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So you guys are out with your 2025 projections for hurricane season in the Atlantic Basin. Can you take us through just the broad overview? How bad will this hurricane season be?
Yeah, well, we're expecting 13 to 18 named storms. Last year we saw 18, so it looks like it's probably going to be a little bit less active than last year, at least in terms of the number of storms. The average is 14, so still expecting an average to above average hurricane season, expecting 7 to 10 of those storms to become hurricanes. Last year, we saw 11 hurricanes. And then of those 7 to 10 hurricanes, we expect 3 to 5 of them to become major hurricanes, and that would be category 3 or above. But the number that everybody really cares about here is how many of these are actually going to impact me. Well, we have 3 to 6 direct impacts on the United States here forecasted. Last year we saw 6 and the average is 4. So we still expect a very impactful hurricane season.
So just to break down that 13 to 18 number, are those storms that could potentially form in the Gulf or off the coast of the U.S. and maybe not even make landfall or not register in people's minds or even in the weather that we experience?
Yeah, correct. A lot of these storms won't even get close to land. Most of them curve out into the Atlantic. Maybe they impact Bermuda, or some of them even stay well east of Bermuda and then just work their way out and only affect shipping channels. So most of the storms actually never really get close to the United States. But it's those 3 to 6 that we're concerned about that could actually make landfall or get very, very close to the United States. And those are the ones that people need to watch very, very carefully.
Are you forecasting which months those might hit, those major storms making landfall, or is it too soon to say?
Well, hurricane season runs from June 1st all the way through the end of November. So we can really see storms any time in that period. But this year, especially, we're concerned that there could even be some early season development. The water temperatures are very, very warm in here. So everywhere where you see orange or yellow in here are indicating temperatures that are above average. So as we get a little bit closer towards the hurricane season, May storms are, fairly rare, but they do happen. And it wouldn't surprise me if we could get something to develop during the month of May, certainly during the month of June. So like I said, not very common to get something in May, but it does happen. And I think that because of the water temperatures being so warm and the fact that we're transitioning from a La Nina to neutral, you're still going to have a little bit of those La Nina impacts, lower wind shear across the basin. That makes things a little bit more conducive for early season or even preseason development.
So last year was a La Nina year. This year is, you said neutral, so not El Nina, not El Nino. Can you just explain a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, we're basically on the cusp of a La Nina. And essentially what that is the water temperatures way out across the eastern Pacific Ocean, right along the equator, would be cooler than average. And so they're cooler than average right now, but we're right on the cusp of a La Nina. Typically, we would need 3 straight months of that to officially be declared a La Nina. So I don't think they've quite done that, but nevertheless, the atmosphere is behaving like a La Nina. And as we go into the hurricane season, those water temperatures way, way, way down here are going to be warming up a little bit. However, there's a little bit of a lag time. And so, the Atlantic basin may actually act kind of like a La Nina during the months of May, June, and maybe even into July with some reduced wind shear across this area. But even during neutral years, which we expect most of this hurricane season to be in, the research has found that even though the numbers of storms might not be as high as they are during La Nina years, it's still very close. It's really those El Nino years that you really see a significant drop in tropical storms and hurricanes. Neutral years and La Nina years are actually very, very close.
And that would account for the forecast that you just shared being relatively close to the numbers that we saw last year. Let's get into the major storm impacts. What are the geographic areas you're forecasting could be at risk for landfall and significant damage?
Yeah, so when we're creating our forecast, we look back typically at years that we expect to have a similar atmospheric pattern. So we're looking back at years that probably started as a La Nina or a weak La Nina and then transitioned over to a neutral pattern during the hurricane season. And then we kind of look at, which areas were impacted during that time. And then we usually like to plot them. And this is what we have here. Every orange dot you see on this map was a tropical storm hit, and every red dot was a hurricane hit. And there were 12 years in what we call our analog package. And we circled the areas that we have kind of clustering, right? And so you can see a lot of clustering here along the Texas coast, some here in the north central Gulf Coast around the New Orleans area. And then you see some around the Big Bend of Florida and along the West Coast, some more over there near North Carolina, the North Carolina coast, and then some in Atlantic Canada as well. And so these are the areas that the past patterns have led to impacts in these areas. And so these are the areas that I'm concerned that if we indeed go towards neutral this season, which we expect it to do so, the atmospheric patterns support a greater than average risk in these circled areas here.